What was it like growing up in Paris?
The area I grew up in is very nice, very central in Paris. You'd see the Eiffel Tower. Like, schooling system in France in general is quite like long hours. I was always in Catholic schools. I was in an all-boys class. For some reason, they thought there that the ideal way a man should be developed is by fighting.
Could you tell us more about those kind of tensions in France? Because it seems that's all we see about France right now. All the riots and the division and the racial tension.
The thing in France is...
Do you think overall these protests are a good thing or not?
I think it's good that people are protesting. I don't know if it's the right way to do it. By having more and more violence, you ignite more reaction against you.
Another thing I want to speak to you about, your near-death experience.
It was in July 2020. I went out with a childhood friend of mine who I hadn't seen in years. We went and got massively drunk. I walked him home. I remember he told me, call me when you get home. As I was walking home, a group of guys stopped me to ask for a lighter. I told them, no, I don't smoke. And then they started shoving me around. At this point, I was like, there's 4 of them. I can't go anywhere. Then I made stupidest mistake of my life. I could have died. From there on, I was like, I'm going to take every opportunity.
How did you deal with the trauma?
Not think about it. Eventually, it caught up to me. I started having flashbacks and it made life really unbearable. And so I started seeking out help.
I'm very proud of you. Now you're sharing it publicly, so you have made such a huge progress. This story will help many others. In today's conversation, we spoke to Thomas Noonan. Thomas is an amazing photographer and currently studying history and politics at King's College London. In our conversation, he shares his life journey with us, what it was like growing up in Paris. Also, since the France protest scene is wild, we got to know more about that too. Thomas has also gone through a very traumatic experience of being stabbed in France, and he shares with us what he learned from his near-death experience and how it changed him as a person. And furthermore, we also spoke about the lack of mental health support there is in our society. We hope that you find this conversation as insightful as we did. Thank you so much for listening. So you're a war studies student, right? At King's College London?
No, I do history and international relations.
It's a war studies department.
My primary department is history, and secondary is the Department of War Studies.
War studies.
Interesting. But you are from Paris.
I am from Paris.
That's correct.
Paris.
Paris.
Why is it known as the City of Love?
That's a good question. I don't know. Because you take your dates there.
It is interesting though, because I never knew why. Why is it the City of Love?
Well, I don't know. I think it's just because it's the capital of France. France is like romanticism and good foods, good wines. That kind of stuff. So, I don't know.
It might be the language.
In French, we only call it the City of Lights.
Oh.
We don't really have this idea of the City of Love, I think.
Is that...
Maybe, but it's not as big.
Is it called the City of Light just because it's generally got a lot of light, or is it because of the Eiffel Tower?
I think it's because it was one of the earliest cities to have an actual gas public lights.
Oh, interesting.
So, the old, the very old, very nice looking street lamps in Paris.
Yeah.
That's the reason. And originally they were gas powered. So you'd have a guy come every evening and every morning to turn them on and off.
Interesting. Do you think some guy just went to Paris, got the accent wrong? They were saying the City of Light and he thought they were saying the City of Love.
Yeah, because it sounded so nice, it sounded so seductive to him. So he was like, yeah, it might be. Might as well be City of Love. So, go on.
What was it like growing up in Paris?
Well, I mean, it's probably quite similar to any kind of big city. It's just that it's a very beautiful big city. So when you're walking around, I mean, at least in the area I grew up in, is very nice, very central in Paris. So you'd see those beautiful 19th century architecture all over the place. The Eiffel Tower, the Golden Dome of the Invalides. So it's very nice, but just more about enjoying good food. Really is.
I love when I went last summer, and just the cappuccinos by the Eiffel Tower is one of the best experiences. There's something about that place. It is beautiful energy. But I wanted to know was your schooling experience. So you did your like secondary and primary school in France.
Yeah.
What was that like?
So, I mean, I did all my education until like first year of university in France.
Wow.
So, I mean, primary school in France, you like schooling system in France in general is quite like long hours. You can expect to be at school from 8 to 5 p.m. every day, and then after that you have sometimes you can get like extracurricular activities. So I used to do judo, for instance, when I was in primary school after school, but I was underweight and very small, so I was getting thrown around like absolute mad.
Was it a lot of bullying?
So I got so I was schooled in elementary school. I was in a I was always in Catholic schools, but in elementary school it was very nice because it was a it's called the charismatic movement in Catholicism. So it's very, you'd say it's woke basically. They're just very chill, very relaxed, and not very old school. So it was very nice. But then in middle school, I went to a school called Stanislas, which is more an integrist, fundamentalist Catholic school, where it was basically. So first off, it's quite rare in France to separate boys and girls classes. So I was in an all boys class, which is really weird in France. And for some reason, they thought there that the ideal way a man should be developed is by fighting. So whenever there would be fights in the schoolyards, they wouldn't break it apart. They wouldn't say anything. They would actually
Even the
encourage
teachers.
You. Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah,
So the teachers were like, "Yo, just scrap it." That sounds like a prison to me.
Actually, the school was like one of the building that housed the boys' classes was actually designed by prison architects.
No way.
Yeah.
The evil spirit, his evil spirit lingered there.
They thought about it and they were like, so we're putting all boys with like a tough education system and they're going to destroy the place, which we did. Like we absolutely tore the place down. So he was like, all right, we'll make it solid. So they got a prison architect.
That is mad. And you mentioned earlier that this school is getting some sort of criticism now as well.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about that, please?
So the school's gotten a lot of criticism in the years because of how tough they are in their education system, encouraging violence and macho behaviors. But recently, Emmanuel Macron nominated for Ministry of the Education a woman who was actually revealed to have her children be in this school, in this Lycée Stanislas. And so journalists, there was a lot of scandals already in the school related to, sexual violence by the professors.
Really?
And so there's a scandal because one of the music professors who was also overseeing some of the higher education stuff actually was revealed to have abused some of his students. So he would make them come to his office and abuse them. So this minister of the education suddenly was nominated for this post. She had to deal with this dossier, but her children were in Stanislas.
Wow.
which causes so many problems.
Yeah, it's a massive conflict of interest.
Massive conflict of interest, and this made the whole scandal quite massive. So eventually, a lot of people started speaking out about the problems that there are in the school. So, victims of sexual violence by the principal, actually, even the
Wow.
principal.
Even
The principal, yeah,
Man, it's tragic.
the not the principal right now, but the guy before him actually was condemned for having touched kids inappropriately in his office. And this guy was a madman. Like, he was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
If you had your hair too long, like this long, if your hair was this long, he would make you come to his office and shave it.
Shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
How is this school still running?
Yeah, I don't get it, especially in like a developed country like.
And you see,
France.
that's one thing that's really weird about it, is that the same thing happening in a Muslim school would have mean the end of the school. Like the biggest Muslim school in France, private Muslim school in France, Lycée Averroès. They were keeping the names of the ministry investigators who would come. Every year you'd have a ministry educator come to check if the school is up to standards, and they were keeping a note on who came for whatever reason, and that was enough to make the school go down.
Really?
They stopped the school. Lycée Stanislas, obviously it's a very good school, very good reputation, very, very good results, but the education system is so rough. They are so rough. They're misogynistic. They're homophobic. They were homophobic as fuck. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it.
Yeah, you can
You
swear.
are.
Okay. So they were absolutely mental. When gay marriage was being legalized in France, I was there. I was in middle school there at this point, and so the school and the educators would tell us to go and protest against gay marriage.
No
That's
way.
Yeah.
crazy. Like it just.
And somehow this school isn't, like, it's still running.
If it was a Muslim school doing that, imagine the backlash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in the UK, that would be crazy.
That school's not gonna last another day.
Yeah, exactly. So, could you tell us more about those kind of tensions in France? Because living in the UK, it seems that's all we see about France
Yeah.
right now, just all the riots and the division and the racial tension.
I mean, France is a complex country. But the thing in France is, like, political violence is relatively common. It's not a weird thing to see political violence, whether that's big riots or just small militant groups clashing in the streets. That's relatively common. And it's not shocking for French people. Like, you see French police, they're armed with fucking automatic weapons
Yeah.
to do riot police. Fucking mental.
Yeah, I was thrown back when I went to Paris and they big buff dudes with next level weapons. I'm like, oh my god! Like
Yeah.
I expected it to be like UK. It's nothing like UK.
Mm.
They actually supply some of the weapons of the Israeli army.
Do they?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. But thing is, like, in France, there's people have this idea that France has become like third world countries.
People have this idea in France, or
Yeah,
people from the
in
outside.
in
Okay.
France. And so they, like, a lot of people just blame immigration for the economic downturn, the social insecurity, all the problems that France has, which France does have. Like, let's face it, France has a lot of problems. But people blame it on immigration. and especially on Muslim immigration from Maghreb, from Northern Africa. And so, there's this kind of racial divide. So people are now voting more and more for more and more restrictive immigration policies, voting for nationalist leaders like Marine Le Pen, whose party was quite literally formed by a bunch of neo-Nazis.
Really?
Her father actually was volunteered to go fight in Algeria. He did some torture there, and he eventually forgot something very important there. He forgot his dagger when he was raiding a house to torture someone, and the kid of the person who was being arrested found the weapon and kept it hidden, and it's a SS dagger from Nazi Germany that Jean-Marie Le Pen had bought at a flea market and inscribed his name on it.
Oh my days.
And so now if you look up Jean-Marie Le Pen SS dagger on the internet, you'll find a picture of this really weird relic.
Oh my
I
days.
can't believe this stuff is still happening.
And now his daughter is very likely might be the next.
Yeah. Although she certainly isn't as crazy as Jean-Marie. She's still, nationalist. She's still very anti-immigration. She's still very Islamophobic.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really interesting on that point is these countries like the UK and France, they colonize other countries. They completely destroy their economic opportunities. And then when the people from those colonies then eventually want to seek out a better life for them and come to the countries that took away their wealth, took away their financial opportunities, then they have a problem with it. Like you said, France with North Africa, the
Especially
UK.
Nigeria.
Yeah, exactly. In the UK with
India and Pakistan, especially them. Yeah.
it is really interesting. Have you ever been involved in any protests or riot yourself? You have.
Yeah. So, growing up in France, it's hard to not have some level of involvement with it, whether you're for or against those protests. But when I was in middle school, there was like a big protest movement against the policies of the president at the time, François Hollande. And thing is, the route of those protests always followed the same route as my walk home from school.
Oh.
So you'd have like 14-year-old me coming home from this really fundamentalist Catholic school with my little backpack and the strict dress codes. I was wearing loafers and shirts and everything, walking home from school through those protests with like black bloc protesters and Antifas breaking down everything in their path.
Damn, just chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You leave the school and it's just chaos.
Yeah, and you'd hear them from the school, like, because they were walking so close from the school that you'd hear them.
Really?
And there would be like a lot of tear gas in the air and everything. But then in high school, I left this really weird school and went back to the same school I did elementary in, which was much nicer, but still very good. And there, at this point, there was the Yellow Vest protest movement that was starting to break up.
So what was that about?
So people were starting to protest against the rise of the tax on diesel fuel, but very quickly turned into a fight against neoliberal policies pursued by the president and the cabinet. and it grew very, very big very quickly with millions of people protesting in Paris on the Champs-Élysées. You went there, right?
Yeah.
And it was absolutely mental. You'd have millions of people protesting, overpowering the police, burning stuff up, and the real problem there was the fact that there wasn't a real lead to the movement. It was completely ground up. So it completely raised from the ground up, and so everyone was kind of wondering, where the fuck is this protest movement coming from? Who's behind it? What's going on? And so because I was in Paris at the time, and I was a young teenage boy with a lot of adrenaline and who likes going into action, I went there with with a couple of friends, and we started chatting with the people and taking videos and everything. And so we saw a lot of, and we interviewed those protesters, and we realized that, they're not just mad about a 2% increase in taxes. They're mad about a whole range of issues that have been started since the early 2000s. That makes more sense now why they're so mad about this.
So it's a cumulative rather than like sometimes they're like, oh, the French protests about everything.
Yeah.
It's because it's just getting more ridiculous and ridiculous. So it's just added up.
Yeah.
It's added up tension. Oh, okay.
And plus, for France, social services are a big part of French identity. Like, French are proud of having school for free, having university for free, having healthcare, having social services. It's something that makes French people proud. So if you start taking it away from French people, they're mad.
Right.
So that's what's happening.
And rightfully so. Do you think overall these protests are a good thing or not?
I think it's good that people are protesting. I don't know if it's the right way to do it, because you also alienate a lot of people by doing this. And that's the problem, is by having more and more violence, you ignite more reaction against you. So more and more people start being against you, against your ideas. Start thinking that the problem is not the system that led to this protest, but the protesters themselves. I mean, you see it when when there's a train strike. You see it. People are not mad about the Great Western Railway. They're mad at the railway workers.
Yeah.
For striking. But the railway workers are usually striking for a reason. It's hard to just, be like, oh, today I'm not working, fuck it. So, people don't usually think about the long consequences of why, the big causes of why people are doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's similar with the Just Stop Oil protesters. Everyone hates them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're causing innocent people problems that have you're not going against your enemies. You don't even know who your enemy is. And even if they do, they're too afraid. It's like Kanye West, right? He, instead of calling out the individuals that are causing him harm, right? But he's just calling out the entire religion, like Jewish people, every Jewish person. That's so wrong.
Yeah.
Anti-Semitism is just not that should never, you should never have to resort to that.
Yeah.
Call out the individuals. Why are you bringing religion into it? Oh, these individuals turns out to be Jewish, but it's not Judaism that's the problem. Is they are, as an individual, are just bad human beings. Call them out if you're brave.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the thing. People find it easier to just go against an entity that doesn't exist. In whatever, if it's Kanye West, it's international jury or whatever he calls it.
Yeah.
So that instead of actually looking into it and being like, oh, here's a system, those specific people are leading it, blah blah blah, they're just like, oh, fuck it, fuck them, fuck everyone, hate everyone.
Yeah. It is difficult though. Going back to the protesters, not the Kanye West thing. It is difficult. Like, how can you actually directly impact these systems and these organizations without doing that? Like,
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be an easy solution to it without just causing a lot of disruption to everyone and then hoping that that affects the organizations you're intending as well. But I think they do need to find a different solution, because it creates a lot of resentment in just the average person. Instead of turning them to your side, you're turning them against you because you're now causing them an inconvenience in their own life.
Yeah. Plus, the the yellow vest protests were also a lot about class divides. You'd have, I mean, the protesters were mostly lower middle classes, guys from the countryside who need their car to go to work, and that's why they got suddenly so pissed about it. Who then went up to Paris to protest about it, because they started protesting in their local towns, in, you know, the bigger the highways and stuff like this. They would block highways or block the fare gates at the highways, you know, so that highways are free for everyone. That was a very good thing, and at this point everyone was like, oh, I like you guys. And then suddenly they went up to Paris and the big cities, and the urban elites were like, oh, I hate them now. They're annoying me. They're destroying everything on Saturday, because it was every Saturday there would be a protest. Millions of people coming to Paris from elsewhere.
Protesting is so important as well. It's so vital, but it's just the way it's done needs to be so on point to really get that like massive, large scale change. Like, for example, remember when people were taking those ULEZ cameras down? Everyone loves that protest. People
That's
are all
amazing.
on their side. But then if you're actually like the Just Stop Oil protesters who are blocking people from getting to work or getting their family members to hospital, everyone hates them because you're causing someone an inconvenience. Another question I had was, why was it called the Yellow Vest protest?
Because they were wearing high-vis jackets,
Oh,
which are
is
yellow.
it?
Because they were, so there were the car users, and in cars in France, you're mandated by law to have a high-vis jacket
Really?
in your car. Because if you have an accident on the road, you need to be wearing your high-vis jacket. And so they took it as a symbol of car user. And yeah, they would start wearing high-vis jackets everywhere. So you see the pictures of the yellow vest protest movements is just a bunch of high-vis jackets.
That's interesting.
Another thing I wanted to speak to you about was your near-death experience. Yeah, so France is, like you said, it's not the safest place.
Yeah.
Would you like to dive into that story?
Yeah, of course. So it was in July 2020. It was the summer of my 18 years old. And it was just a couple of weeks after I'd been diagnosed with a medical condition, with tremors, myoclonic tremors. And I was very sad because that meant I wouldn't be able to do my like lifelong career dream, which I think we'll talk about later. So I went out with a childhood friend of mine who I hadn't seen in years, and we went and got massively drunk. It was very fun evening until I got a problem. And so I walked him home, and I remember he told me, Thomas, be careful, all right? Call me when you get home. I'm scared for you, man. And I was like, no, it's all right. I know the walk home, no problem. It's all good. And as I was walking home, it was right after the lockdowns. A group of men. I was walking along the riverbanks in Paris, and a group of guys went up to me and stopped me to ask for a lighter. and I told them no, I don't smoke, but they didn't realize they were encircling me, and then they started shoving me around and pushing me and punching me
For no reason.
for no reason, nothing. They were just passing their nose. They just wanted to fight someone. Plus, I was drunk. Easy target. At this point, I was like, "There's 4 of them. I'm encircled. I can't go anywhere. I'm fucked. I'm gonna fight till you guys regret it." And I was really like, I really wanted to get them, make them regret it, because I knew I was fucked. I knew they would absolutely destroy me. So it was like, I'll take at least one of you guys down with me. So I punched a guy, one of them, really, really hard, straight in the head, and knocked him straight down. Then I made stupidest mistake of my life. I was carrying a knife at this time. I took the knife out.
You took the knife.
Yeah. I had the knife on me and I took a knife out. And the 2 of them took me by the arms, back in the arms. And the 3rd one was punching me in the face, absolutely pummeling me. And I got knocked out. I don't remember what happened afterwards. But I remember this really weird feeling when I was knocked unconscious. I felt to myself, I was conscious that I was drifting away. And that was like, I was dying.
Really?
And so I was thinking about my life. I was mostly I was thinking how, like, on regrets I had in my life of not living how I wanted to live, being, bound to like social expectations of what people want you to do, how you should act, and not appreciating life daily as a gift, because at this instant I realized, fuck, you can just get it done. You can just lose your life in an instant, not understanding what's going on. And then this really weird feeling that I was drifting away, that I was losing myself. And then suddenly I woke up, and there was 4 firemen on top of me, and a bunch of young lads who apparently had called the fire rescue, and had found me and called the fire rescue and helped stabilize the wounds, because I had a traumatic brain injury, and I had a lot of I'd been beaten up, not quite severely, but also I'd been cut. I had 2 knife wounds on the shoulder, but also had my ear halfway cut off.
Oh.
And so I lost a lot of blood at this point, and I was completely delirious. But also I was pumped full of adrenaline. And my first instinct when I woke up was just get standing up and fight. And then the fireman just took me by the shoulder and was like, "Puff! You're going straight down."
That's crazy. And when did you realize they had like stabbed you?
So I didn't realize anything until I was in the hospital, and the guy was like, "You need to get patched up. You need to get stitches, because you have a two clear-cut wounds here. One of them's really not deep because it hits the collarbone, but the other one went through the flesh a bit. But it also hit the collarbone, so I survived. But you need to get your ear stitched back because half of it is just out in the open. And I also had to get stitches on my
eyebrow.
Yeah, eyebrow. Because I probably fell down and yeah, split open. And it didn't dawn on me that this happened until like later in the day. I was leaving the hospital because they patched me up and they were like, "All right, you're stable now. You can go, and you should go to the police now." And I was like, I could have died. It's not like the oh, I nearly died you have when you have like a small accident training, or when you have like when you cross the road and there's a car coming down. It was like, oh, I was about to die. Like I was bleeding out. And I was like, oh my god, the fuck is wrong? The fuck happened? And yeah, I mean, it was really weird thing. But from there on, I was like, I thought to myself, I was like, I'm not gonna lead a life that makes me regret stuff. Like, I'm going to take every opportunity. I'm going to make the most out of every single day that comes. Because any day I could die or I could lose someone close to me. And having this experience of, feeling like you're dying and being so deeply sorrowful about like all the mistakes you've made in your life, that you
never want to experience that again.
Yeah, and especially not when I die. Even whenever I die, I want to die happy of my life.
How long did it take you to come to that realization or understanding, or was it just instantly after this incident happened you had this mindset shift?
I think it was it was quite fast because it was in the days following it. And the day straight after it, I was so pumped full of adrenaline still that I didn't feel much pain.
Really?
I couldn't open my eyes because I had two black eyes on each eye. So I couldn't open my eyes. I was completely blind for a day, and the following days too. But there was so much adrenaline that it didn't hurt that much. But the following days, it was painful. It was so painful.
Did you have this feeling of wanting to take revenge? And
not really.
How come?
Because I mean, just in general, I'm not a very vengeful person. But also, I didn't think violence was the answer. I didn't think it was. It wouldn't have changed anything to take revenge. It still happens.
Did it ever scare you going forward after that, like going out in public or going out with your friends?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I had a lot of PTSD after that. I had took a very long time for me to process the trauma of it. And for a while, just walking on the same path, which is quite unavoidable because it's like right in front of the Louvre Museum. If you're on the banks of the river, It's right there. It's hard to miss it.
And it's crazy because that's tend to be like a more safer area as well. Like it's if it's happening in that central
Yeah.
where you don't expect it. Like it's not even you went to Dancy or like other like boogie.
Yeah.
It's like happening the spot where it's a tourist spots. So like yeah, that must have been very difficult just even being in safe areas and feeling
Yeah.
like someone's gonna jump you again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there any other important lessons you took from that, or any other ways you changed as a person?
Well, I mean, first off, the lesson I learned the most from this is to remain cool even if you have a problem. Like that was the most important lesson I took. But the way it changed me really was how I see life and how I view life as really as a gift and as an opportunity rather than as something you just live with. Because yeah, as a teenager, I had a lot of I was very depressed as a teenager, especially after this weird middle school experience, and this made me realize that there's much worse, and life is truly a gift. I shouldn't let anything stand in the way of experiencing life as much as I can. I really wanted to experience as much as I can. It's like I'm on extra life now, so I've got this extra life. I'm gonna use it to just collect experience and learn as much as possible. Not just follow the social norm. What's expected of a kid from this background who went to these schools in France, and you're gonna go to do this job and etc.
Yeah, and I think I think that happens a lot of times with people when they have experiences like that, because you truly see that life is really fragile and it could end at any moment. So instead of like focusing on these little things in your day to day that you think are so important, oh, that guy didn't say hi to me, or he wasn't nice to me, instead of focusing on those, just like be grateful for what you do have, the positives, because everything, all these little things, these arguments, the gossip, it's so insignificant in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just like the gossip isn't gonna kill you.
Yeah.
This guy who didn't say hi, get lost.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you don't appreciate it. Get lost. I don't care. It's not none of my business. What's my business is having positive experience
Yeah.
and meeting interesting people like you guys.
Thank you. No, that's amazing. I think that's an amazing message for anyone who's listening to this as well. Like, just be grateful for the opportunity you've been given. That's a very interesting way you put it. Like, life is a chance that you've been given, instead of seeing it as something that's just there, you have it. See it as like an opportunity to do great things. So what are you doing now? You said you've been given this second life, basically. What are you doing with that second life?
So for the moment, I'm trying to graduate my bachelor. So after this experience, I was a bit lost. I decided to do 1 year of university in France, and then I dropped out of it and came to do history and international relations in King's College. And I decided to do it because I wanted to study what I'm passionate about, and I have an insane passion for history. And I really, really want to understand the world, what shapes the world, the global dynamics that have actual importance on the lives of so many people. So I decided to do that, and yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask was, How did you deal with the trauma leading on?
So I tried. It was a long kind of process, but I tried first to kind of not think about it. I was just putting it behind me, thinking, oh, it's the past, it's done. Khalas. Let's just move on with life. But eventually it caught up to me, and I started having flashbacks and bad dreams and that kind of stuff you have with PTSD, and it made life really, really unbearable. Just having, every time you go to sleep, you have the scene play again when you've got a guy punching you straight in the face and you can't do anything about it. That was really, really tough. And so I started seeking out help. And it's difficult to find help because there isn't much information out there for men's mental health. There isn't much stuff to do on men's mental health. There is no information, especially not on PTSD for 18 years old civilian kids. So I had discussions. I was chatting to some of my cousins who are in the army and talking about it, and I realized, oh, I've got PTSD just like them. What's it like? How do I get out of it? How do I accept it? And I sought a diagnosis, and I sought how to kind of, have therapy about it. But I had one therapist, but it was really, I didn't like her approach. It felt really intrusive for me. I didn't want to just start talking about my life to someone I'd never met before, and who only see to talk about my life. It felt really weird. So I felt like this kind of therapy just is really off and I think that's something a lot of guys can experience when going to a therapist, is like, this feels really weird. Am I supposed to just chat about my life and complain about my life to this person I'd never met? That's really wrong. And I eventually was pushed to seek another therapist, and I went to King's Counselling in my university, and it was a painful process because it's so difficult to get an appointment. You need to find a GP who wants you. I'm like, I'm not British. I don't have a GP. I don't know where to find a GP. They're asking me for documents I've never had. I don't know where to find them. Oh, it's in my visa. Fucking hell, where's my visa? UK visa and immigrations. Okay, from there I have to go to the NHS, and from there I have to go to King's. So like really long-winded process for just having an hour with a therapist. That's really ridiculous. And eventually got there, and the therapist gave me a checklist, ran me through a checklist. It was an online thing too. It wasn't even an in-person meeting.
Really?
It felt even worse. Felt even more wrong to talk to someone who's not even in front of you about really personal things in your life, especially because at this point I hadn't processed the trauma, so it felt really, really intrusive, and I was like, that's so wrong. That's such a weird system. And eventually this therapist was like, yeah, you've got like serious PTSD, but it's way out of my league or of the league of any counselor in King's College. You need to be referred to the NHS. And so I did this, and the NHS actually never replied.
Wow.
And this whole process took 3 years just to get anything out of it. And in the end, I got nothing out of it apart from an actual diagnosis, which was, to be fair, the diagnosis was very important, but there was nothing done more. And so I was just trying to process it by accepting it and reflecting upon what had happened, upon it being the past. But also kind of creating myself out of it, meeting new people. And this moving to the UK was a great thing because that meant I was away from the scene where this happened. And I was away from the people, as wrong as it sounds, I was away from the people who were around me at this time. So I was away from anything that reminded me of it.
Oh, so even the people who weren't associated with the incident were a reminder of the terrible thing that happened? Or was it just you talking about those people who attacked you, like just because they were in that city?
No, like the like my friends would come to see me after I got attacked.
Or even they
Seeing
got
them-
associated with trauma.
Seeing them made me think about it because
Oh,
that was
wow.
such a strong thing in my mind. I was like, that's really wrong. Like, they're my friends. I can't hate seeing them. Like, I love seeing them, but it's also super painful to see them. Because every time it reminds me of, when they came to see me. And so moving to the UK for me was a good thing because that meant I had distanced myself from this thing, and so I could think back on it more peacefully from a safe as much as London is safe, but from a safer perspective, and I could think about it. And so and just finding passions, and I was learning a ton of new stuff, studying my passion. So I was building myself around this, and eventually I met someone who had also similar experiences of struggling with PTSD, and I
She is.
yeah. And realizing that there's other people who have a very similar experience who are not soldiers was a really refreshing thing. And especially seeing how she had gotten out of it was super inspiring, and it really helped me process it. And I think that's
Even for myself, like when I went through my trauma of my sister being almost dying because of the assassination attempt by the Taliban, and other like traumatic experience in my life, it's like initially you feel like you can never share the things that are in your heart and your mind. Like you're like, I'm taking this to grave because you feel so embarrassed, you feel so pathetic about it. There's certain things like that, or you feel like, like who would want to hear my problem? Who would want to listen? But similarly to you, what I found that was the most life-changing was just literally talking to people. And Freud, the psychologist, he says that unexpressed emotions don't die. And like it's like the more you speak about it, like the more emotionally you are triggered, and I'm very like proud of you. Like now you're sharing it publicly, so well done to you, man. You've made such a huge progress, and you know, this story will help many others. So my
what's
final question, the final question is, what would you want written on your tombstone?
So first off, and it's a bit controversial, but my biggest thing is I want to be buried where I die. I don't want my body to be repatriated.
Oh, so where you end up dead is buried there?
Yeah.
What if it's your bedroom?
Well, I mean, then I'm buried in the cemetery nearby. But you know, like if I die on a mountain, I want to be buried in the same mountains. And similarly, if I die in a travel covering a conflict somewhere, I'd like to be buried there, and I'd not like my body to be repatriated.
So why?
Because I want my body to remain where I left. You know, it's like my final achievements, my final stuff, the last thing I was doing. I want to stay there.
You can see that's the romanticism, the French in
The
it.
French.
The French in it. And what kind of French love story would you want written on there?
I don't know. I don't really care about it.
I don't really care about it. You know what? We should write. I don't really care about it.
It depends how I died. You know, if I die in like climbing a mountain or at sea, you know, you're right that, you know, I died doing something I love. You know?
That's beautiful.
And if I die doing something I despise, then do it. Right. He dies doing something he hates it so much.
And that's poetic. Thank you so much for coming on, Thomas.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks
It
for
was a
inviting me,
pleasure
guys.
speaking to you.